Good evening. I call to order the meeting of the Village of Burr Ridge Board and Mayor for November 8, 2021. Can I ask Chief Madden to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, Chief. Good job. Ms. Benedict, can you call the roll? Now, are you our Deputy Secretary tonight? Or?
Deputy Village Clerk. That's,
Deputy Village Clerk for tonight. Okay.
well, I'm always Deputy Village.
You are always Deputy Village Clerk, and you're standing in tonight. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Paveza.
Here.
Trustee Snyder.
Here.
Trustee Mattel. Here. Trustee Smith.
Here.
Mayor Gasso.
Here. We have no presentations or public hearings tonight. That will take us to item 4, which is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, opened for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. Minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of October 11, 2021. B, receive and file Economic Development Committee meeting of October 6, 2021. And C, receive and file Plan Commission meeting of November 1, 2021. Ordinances. 6B, approval of an ordinance granting a variation from section 6F4 of the zoning ordinance to permit a single-family residence to be built with a floor area ratio in excess of 20%. V0421 6100 Grant Street, Toland. 7, resolutions. 7A, approval of a resolution appointing Amy Sullivan as the village treasurer. B, approval of a resolution appointing Evan Walter as a delegate and Julie Tukowski as an alternate delegate to the Intergovernmental Risk Management Agency of IRMA. And C, approval of resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Burr Ridge and Cook County for the provision of environmental health inspection services. 8, considerations. Do we have any removals?
8E.
8E, Trustee Schiappa, we will remove 8E. Any other removals? Okay, that will take us to considerations. F, approval of a contract with McFarland Douglas for the 2021 holiday decorations in an amount not to exceed $21,550. G, approval of recommendation to award contract for fiscal year 2022 bulk rock salt purchase to Compass Minerals America of Overland Park, Kansas, in the amount of $119,200. H, approval of a recommendation to award contract for purchase of blended liquid chlorides to K-Tech Specialty Coatings of Ashley, Indiana, in the amount of $13,064. I, approval of recommendation to award contract for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning HVAC system maintenance at village facilities to Dynamic Heating and Piping Company of Crestwood, Illinois, in the amount of $14,471.24. J, approval of Mayor Grasso's recommendation to appoint Enza Perella as a full plan commissioner to fill an expiring term ending February 1, 2023. K, approval of vendor list dated October 25, 2021, in the amount of $635,028.58 for all funds, plus $171,904.75 for payroll for the period ending October 2, 2021, for a grand total of $806,933.33, which includes special expenditures of $29,109 to Geo Painters, Inc. for painting of fire hydrants. L, approval of vendor list dated November 8, 2021, in the amount of $168,462.65 for all funds, plus $177,927.84 for payroll, for the period ending October 16, 2021, for a grand total of $346,390.49, which includes no special expenditures. Can I have a motion for the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, B, C, 6B, 7, A, B, C, 8, F through L.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder? Yes. Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to ordinances. A, consideration of an ordinance granting a planned unit development as per section 8B2CC of the zoning ordinance for the purpose of creating parking and land use regulations at the subject property Z08-2021, 50 to 124 and 200 to 324 Burr Ridge Parkway, Village of Burr Ridge. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is an ordinance. This has already been considered once by the board at its October 11th meeting. The board directed staff to prepare a draft ordinance. The only item that was requiring some further discussion was brought up by Trustee Francis, which is further discussion on the designation and establishment of valet-specific zones when they may operate in accordance with previous board direction. That has been included in the board's packet for consideration. Let me pull it up real quick. Otherwise, I have nothing further. Mayor, back to you.
Anybody have any comments, questions? If not, can I get them? I'm sorry, Guy? Yes.
Yes, thank you. So if we could turn to page 42 of the PDF, please. And I had a concern about the outdoor dining, one of the outdoor dining stipulations. I think it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth bullet point. No outdoor dining shall be located so as to impede pedestrian traffic, et cetera, defined as being 48 inches, within 48 inches of the curb line. Previously, that was 60 inches. So why is that now changed to 48?
60 inches from when? The last meeting?
No, from previous special use approvals for outdoor dining.
I've never encountered the 60-inch rule or have not remembered. I apologize, I just am not aware of that specific rule. I don't doubt you, I'm just saying I don't know. Okay. It can be 60, I don't have any objection.
We can make that change, that'd be,
Well-
and the rest of the board would agree.
Sure, but let's ask a question here. So 4 feet versus 5 feet, it's a foot, but does that adversely affect anybody that's got outdoor dining now that already has put in the stands?
So this is a forward-thinking document. Goes into effect today. So you've already got yours legally approved in there, it would not affect you. 48 inches was put in there because that is what ADA calls for, is a 48-inch clear span. So that
Minimum.
Yeah, right, and that's why it was put in there as 48.
Understand.
But to your point, Mayor, this would not affect it would not require anyone to change simply because this is placed into law. So it would be anybody establishing or changing their outdoor dining in the future would be affected by these regulations.
Okay, and based on the width of this current sidewalk, I'm assuming it doesn't change, is that gonna adversely impact?
No, I don't think a foot would change
Okay.
anything.
I just wanna be sure it doesn't have an adverse impact.
So previous special use permits for outdoor dining required a minimum distance from the curb line, center line of the curb line of 60 inches or 5 feet. We've held all the other outdoor dining special use permit applicants to that rule.
So actually, what you're suggesting is going back to what we actually have been doing?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes, another one?
So if we go to Exhibit C, please, which is on PDF page 47. Well, you can't see the colors too well on the overhead, but so it's my understanding that the red is no parking at all, yellow is loading for 5 minutes, correct?
Correct.
And blue is valet during certain hours of the week.
Correct.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights from whatever time to whatever time. So is that, I mean, how, if I'm a resident and I'm going to pick up my to-go order, how do I know whether to park in blue or yellow or red? How do I know that?
Well, the entire property needs to be signed appropriately, either no parking, standing or loading, or valet eligible.
Okay.
The PUD is written so as to be valet eligible, not valet permitted, in terms of valet exclusiveness.
So if,
As an example, this here, there are no restaurants which currently offer a valet service in this vicinity, but there are some here and here. And so in line of thinking ahead, we said that this would be, these two here, as an example, are valet eligible, in that if a restaurant wanted to do a valet,
okay, I see what you're saying, yes, okay. So then there'll be the appropriate signage, let's say that over by Patty's, you've got a valet eligible spot. Should Patty's want valet parking at some time in the future, then that would, the curb color would change then to blue or some other color, and the appropriate signage would be put in place.
correct, traffic changes would be made.
Okay. Could you call up that picture, please, I sent to you today? Yes. This is an example of some valet parking signage and markings that I found, and I can't remember where it was, might have been Portland, Oregon, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, but it's quite distinct about, you see the striping there on the roadway, and the signage, of course, which we had just talked about, and here it depicts the hours of valet parking and so forth. So I'd like to see something strong like this, or similar to this, so that there's no misunderstandings about someone parking in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Surely if there's a restaurant that has valet parking on a Friday night, it's a busy Friday night, and someone's there parking in the valet spot, picking up their food, or someone's waiting for someone, dropping someone off, or whatever. I just want to try to avoid any problems in the future. So,
Of course,
if something could be added along these lines, that would be great.
absolutely.
Anita?
While we're at the drawing board and figuring it out for this part of County Line Square, why don't we just kind of zone the parking or the types of parking for the entire County Line Square property, so that we don't have to go back when, let's say, 1 year down the road, Patty says, now I want valet parking, and then we're spending time trying to do that and balance it with everyone else.
You need to turn your microphone on.
So what I was saying was, rather than going back to the drawing board 6 months from now, when Patty's asked for it, or maybe Brookhaven says that we're losing business, or someone else asks for it, why don't we just zone the entire County Line Square as valet parking, no parking, or pickup zone, or, the three colors that we have.
I think that is the intent of this ordinance, is to give the flexibility to users, give staff and the property and the tenants the flexibility now to say these are eligible, should they be needed later. Going back to the
Okay,
the map.
so just to use specifics, is Patty's in this? I didn't think it was in this map.
Patty's does not currently have a valet, but we had said because we don't know, we just don't know what will happen on the west side of the property,
Okay.
there was a need to establish what I'll call in regular intervals valet eligible zones similar to this sign, which could come up. So at some point, let's just say the music studio decided to leave for some reason, unfortunately, and a restaurant which wanted valet, which would otherwise be a permitted use, would go in there. They could talk to us and say, we're going to revert this to a valet zone, but they don't need to come back to the board to establish that particular criteria to do that. That's, in my mind, the intent of the ordinance before you tonight, is to give staff the flexibility to go ahead and put those into action and change signs if need be in the future. I don't know how many, there's only 1 to 2 restaurants, depending on how you count them, who currently use valet in the entire property. 2, when Johnny Cabs opens. We'll call first Capri / Are We Live. The second would be Johnny Cabs, which is what this line here was meant to accommodate. But because we don't want to come back and have to reopen the PUD every single time a new tenant comes in, that's where these other lines came in to say these are optional if needed in the future, just depending on what comes through.
Okay, so they're not, they're just, okay.
Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Yep, sorry, so for clarification, in front of Capri and La Cabanita,
Express, you mean?
yeah, Capri Express and La Cabanita, right now it's showing blue, which would say, okay, if they wanted to have valet, they could get it. So tomorrow, would that be for picking up?
So it's yellow.
yellow.
It's yellow until it is functionally turned blue.
Good.
Thank you for the
Yep.
clarification.
We also talked about having like pickup parking spots, food pickup parking spots. Is that in here too? Remember, we had said we can have spots in the parking garage, lot, which would be specifically for Capri Express pickup.
I didn't want to make that's a power that we kind of have administratively between the property owner and the village, just by right. They have that even without the PUD to establish as a private property owner to do that. So it's not included in the PUD so as to not specifically regulate every single spot in the parking lot. But that could happen if need be in certain cases, yes.
Thank you.
So I have one more question on valet.
Please.
If you look at where Patty's is, and you know, I don't think you're going to valet for breakfast, but Patty's leaves someday, and you have a restaurant in there. It's natural, I think, to have the valet at the corner. Could they come in, or would they have to then say their valet for that? If that was a restaurant, their valet would have to be down the street, or could they come in and say, well, we want to flip that, or?
Yeah, they'd have to come in and change it. I mean, we certainly can change it tonight here. I think the theory that we had and kind of as staff is that the end of this street here, kind of right in this area, it's kind of a tricky intersection that you've got three directions of traffic, which is rare in this property. There was some concern about possibly conflicts here at this, basically wading back into this drive aisle here.
Okay.
So we decided to stop it short, but if there's a desire to have it extended, it could be explored.
Oh, why don't we leave it the way it is, and if we have the good problem of somebody else wanting to come in and ask for a change because they're bringing business to the village, then the plan commission and or the board can make a decision at that time. It'll be in the future, and that board and that plan commission can make a decision. Okay? Everybody's question's been answered? All right. Therefore, can I get a motion to approve or direct staff to? No, this is going to approve. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance granting a PUD as per section 8B2CC of the zoning ordinance for the purpose of creating parking and land use regulations at the subject property, which is 50 to 124 and 200 to 324 Burr Ridge Parkway in the village of Burr Ridge, with two suggestions as part of the motion. Everybody understand that?
60 inches from the curb line, and what was the second?
What was, and the signage.
Signage and striping or signage and some sort of pavement marking.
Distinct signage.
Just with distinct signage and markings at the discretion of staff?
Sure.
Okay? All right, with those two? All right, that is the motion,
So moved.
Second.
and we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
6-0. Just to give this some perspective, this is something that Village of Burr Ridge has been trying to achieve for a long time. So kudos to Evan and staff for finally convincing the owners and finally convincing everybody else to get this done. This will at least allow us to have a little bit more to say about what's happening over there, and that we get some upgrades and bring that to a state of compliance that is more consistent with overall standards in Burr Ridge. So this is an important thing tonight. Thank you for doing this. All right, that takes us to considerations. A, presentation of 6-month fiscal year 2022 update. Evan?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I'm going to invite Finance Consultant Mampa up to make this presentation on my behalf. Thank you.
Good evening.
You have permission, absolutely, to take off your mask.
Thank you. So this is a 6-month mid-year review. I'm a little bit new here, so I'm not super familiar with everything that the village does financially, but I'm getting there. So I just wanted to kind of open up with some opening comments. We completed the audit last month. The audit was presented to the board. The general fund balance in that audit as of 4/30 of 2021 is approximately 66% of the operating expenditures of the general fund, which is a very healthy fund balance. And we obviously are carrying that into fiscal year 2022. We're going to be making a draw on that fund balance to pay down the debt that the board considered a couple board meetings ago. That draw is about almost $1.3 million. $850,000 of that was reserved from the OPUS funds that had previously been received by the village, and then there's an additional draw of about $418,000. That will pay off the debt in full, and the village will have no outstanding debt, which is wonderful. If revenues kind of remain fairly consistent with budget and how they're coming in today, I'm projecting very, very early and subject to a lot of changes that the fund balance at the end of 2022 will be about 51%, which is just under 6 months of fund balance, which is very healthy according to rating agencies, best practices, et cetera. So the village is in a really good position. Revenues are coming in well for the year. A lot of them are over 50% of the budget as of October 31st, which is awesome. And I think that the spending is trending as it should be. There's not really any overspending going on. All of the departments are within their budgets. I want to keep going. There's a lot of graphs in here, so I'll just kind of go through the following pages rather quickly. Each one kind of compares the fund's revenue to its expenditures and then gives you an idea of where revenue is as compared to budget and where spending is as compared to budget. So the first one is the general fund. I touched on that earlier. Revenues are exceeding actual expenditures by not a significant amount, but fairly close. But revenues, more importantly, are exceeding 50% of what was budgeted for revenues, which is very good. We're only at 6 months. We should be at 50, and we're above that. The village did incur some expenses as related to the storm that happened back in June. The budget adjustment item that was on the board includes those budget adjustments. The next page kind of just outlines for the board the categories of general fund revenues. Kind of a lot of different colors on there. The legend is at the bottom. Probably the biggest thing to notice or to think about is that sales and use tax, which are a larger portion of the general fund revenues, they do lag by 3 months. So while we're 6 months into the fiscal year, we only have 3 months of those revenue types in-house. They are trending higher than they were in the prior year, and hopefully that continues. But like I said, we've only received 3 months worth. Revenues do continue to rebound. Places of eating taxes up significantly over the prior year. Sales taxes up significantly over the prior year when you compare the same 6 months. Income taxes are also higher, 27% higher than the same time period in 2020. A significant amount that the village receives in its general fund. Cable franchise, fines and forfeitures, pretty much all of them are higher than they were for the same 6 months of 2020.
I just had a question. The bar graph that you have for 2021, is that for 6 months or the middle column? That's just for 6 months, or that's a projection of where 2021 will end
These are
up?
for 6 months.
All of them are for 6 months?
Yep.
But then why is 2020 exceeding 2021?
Because fiscal year 2020 ended on April 30th of 2020, which was the very, very beginning of the pandemic. So most of our revenues had already been received.
Uh-huh.
And then fiscal year 2021 ran from May 1st of 2020 through this April. So that's really the time period that the village felt the biggest hit of the pandemic on its revenues.
Understood. And 2022, okay, makes sense.
And then 2022, we're rebounding back up.
Thank you.
Yep. Next slide. So this just kind of continues through our larger funds. Motor fuel tax, we've received 4 of the 6 installments from the Build Illinois bond. We've transferred some of the funds out to the capital improvement fund as was budgeted for the year, and we continue to receive our motor fuel tax on a monthly basis from the state. Motor fuel tax does lag also, not by 3 months. It lags by between 1 and 2 months, depending upon when the state distributes those funds. Next one. Hotel motel, this is a good one. We see that revenues are exceeding the budget by exceeding 50% of the budget as of October 31st. Expenditures are lower. I think a lot of those expenditures come in throughout the year. But this is a good sign, once again, that we're recovering from the pandemic because our hotel motel tax is going up and it's higher than 20%.
So on the actual versus budget, let's take FY '22. So that actual is against the full year budget?
Yeah, so the trend line that I have on there, and it's a little bit hard to see up on the screen, that kind of signifies where 50% of the budget is, because that's where it should be after 6 months of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And then the blue is where we actually are for revenue.
And the gray is
And the gray is the budget.
for the entire year? Oh, for 6 months?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, it's not for 6 months, it's for the full fiscal year. The
Full
orange
fis-
line is the 6 months.
Is the 6 months?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Water fund, we've billed 3 billing cycles. Our revenues are exceeding our budget slightly. Once again, a good sign. Expenditures, they kind of come in throughout the year evenly, maybe a little bit higher in the summer months when we're doing construction. But the expenditures are in line with the budget. And then the last one is the sewer fund. And once again, also revenues are exceeding expenditures and are at about 50% of the total budget for the year. The pages behind here really just kind of contain all the detail of what goes into these graphs. Just wanted to kind of give you the numbers that go into the graphs. Any questions?
Any questions? Anyone in the audience have any questions? For me, too thorough. Great. But bearer of good news. Yes.
Just a couple, the majority of our sales and use tax comes from, because I mean, that was a big jump. And where's the majority of our sales and use tax come from?
Well, shopping, stores, online shopping, I don't know if they're village, like I said, I'm not super familiar with
Right.
the village.
But place of
auto
eating
dealerships.
is separate from sales and use tax.
What's separate?
I'm sorry. The place of eating
Oh,
is
yes,
separate.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, this is strictly the 1% sales tax that the city, or that the village collects, as well as the home rule sales tax that the village collects.
Okay.
Places of eating is separate.
And then I saw another big jump in the telecommunications tax. And is that cell phones or landlines?
That is landlines. Is that a jump? I think that one was going down.
It's going
Could be.
down.
No one has landlines.
Yeah.
Going down significantly.
Telecommunications
Well, as a
is,
percentage of the budget.
yeah, so
I'm sorry.
telecommunications is most likely in with the utility tax. Those telecommunications as a tax by itself most likely has been going down. I don't know, is it
Okay.
in the
Here, let me answer that a different
detail
way.
here?
Trustee Shabba, so as an example, in FY '20, telecom was 565, in '22 it's 358. So we're getting a larger percentage of it now paid on time, but the actual number is going down.
Going down. Okay. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Anne Marie, thank you. Thank you. Very thorough.
I
Yes,
have
wait.
one question. So we have forecasted the interest income to be 151,390. Interest income is from the money that we had, which we're gonna use to pay down the debt, right?
So this is, the debt service fund is not actually presented here, so that would be interest income on all the other funds that the village has
Okay,
invested.
I just wanted to clarify, so this is not, so this will still be there?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a real quick one, under the motor fuel tax fund, I noticed that we have in the note, Rebuild Illinois Bond Fund of 6 installments, which looks like it's gonna total $695,880. What is that earmarked for?
Presently, nothing. That money needs, we're gonna have 2 more years of Rebuild Illinois installments which come in. At some point, the village needs to make a decision on what to do with that. The state gives you wide latitude about what you actually can spend that money on. They basically say it should be, quote, a transformational capital project. They don't really give you any specification, but we're working on some preliminary ideas about how we could possibly attribute that money that we'd present to you maybe this budget year, but just, we do have, I think, 4 more years to actually spend that money, or at least put it into motion to spend that money.
Nice.
So that's nice, too.
Yes, it is.
That's being put in, that's being put aside. And then there's also, many villages have been beating the drum that Burr Ridge has been beating about the hotel motel fund. And we are not the only village that has several hotels and has a healthy hotel motel fund, that villages would rather use the money the way their boards see better than what Springfield does. And so there's actually real momentum. It's really started going towards the end, and we're hoping to have that momentum for next year. There seems to be almost bipartisan, to some extent, support for allowing non-home rule communities much more latitude with how to use the hotel motel money. And if that does get through, and we think it's got a good shot in the next session, then that will also give us a lot more money that we can work with, and this board can better decide how to use that money rather than Springfield. Yes, Guy?
Comment, excuse me, a comment. That Rebuild Illinois Fund discussion would be an excellent topic for a future budget workshop that you've been a proponent of, Trustee Smith. I'll throw that out there.
Thank you.
Be another good problem to solve.
Yes, it is.
That's good. So, very healthy fiscally, very healthy Burr Ridge. Correct? All right. Thank you.
I think I'm coming right back up, or?
Oh, you're coming right back up. Oh, stay right there. That will then, that will then take us to item B, consideration of 2021 property tax levy scenarios. Anne Maurice, the floor is yours.
So just kind of high level, first slide. Just to kind of give you an idea of what the process will be. So this really is the bringing the levy to the board. The way I understand it is kind of kicking off the budget process for the village for fiscal year 2023. So we're presenting the proposed levy to the board tonight. We'll bring it back in December to officially approve the levy ordinance. The ordinances will be filed with the counties before the end of the calendar year, and then the revenue will be from the levy that's approved in December will be collected in our fiscal year 2022 and 2023. So the following page, this reflects the proposed levy. The shaded column is the proposed levy that staff is recommending. It reflects a 1.5% increase over the dollar amount of the 2020 levy, and that is based upon the 1.5% growth that the village has seen in its property over the average of the last 3 years. The new property information comes from the counties every year to the village. We took an average of 3 years, expecting that it would continue to grow at approximately the same rate. The police pension levy is approximately a $24,000 increase over the prior year's statutory minimum. And the proposed levy amounts to approximately, depending on the assessed value of your property, approximately $1.20 per $100 of EAV to a resident owner. This is the staff's proposal. We will fit it into the 2023 budget that we begin to draft, and utilize it obviously to fund the general fund as well as the police pension contribution. If you go to the next page, these following pages are just kind of some history and support for the amount of the levy, just to give the village an idea of kind of what we've done in the past. So this slide just really shows the components of the levy, and you can see that the levy has slightly grown year after year. The components have remained relatively the same, but you do see the police pension portion of it kind of continues to grow. There's a few years where it drops, where there was probably a really good market return the prior year, and then you see it grow again, but pretty consistent over the last 6 levy years. I know you're probably used to seeing more than just the 6 years. I started with the year where the debt service levy dropped off, just to kind of have it apples to apples. So prior to 2016, your levy had included some debt service. This just kind of shows how the EAV of the village has grown over the last 6 years, and obviously there's an inverse relationship between EAV and rate. So as you see your EAV goes up, if your levy remains fairly constant or doesn't grow significantly, the tax rate goes down. And that's what the village has been able to do over the last 6 years. This is how the property tax or the tax dollars that a resident pays are allocated. As we all know, the most significant portion of it goes to the schools. It's no news to most of us. The village is kind of down towards the bottom. Just the township has a lesser amount. The village is actually less than 2% of a total tax bill is received by the village. This is kind of
Emery, you need to, you need to say that more loudly. The village portion is less than 2% of the taxpayer's property tax bill.
less than 2% of the dollars that a taxpayer pays comes to the village.
Thank you.
Is that good? Okay. And this just kind of is a graph. I know it's presented, I believe, to the board each year. That just shows where the village of Burr Ridge falls as compared to its neighboring communities with their property tax rate. Now, these are pretty much our comparables. We have all the same revenue sources. We're about the same size of some of them, have the same, well, I just said that have the same revenue sources. So our tax rate is significantly lower than a lot of these towns. And then this is really just a summary. So once again, the proposed levy is $1,338,669. The final amount will obviously be determined once we file the ordinance with the counties and they do the extension. We are well below the limiting rate of the 0.1059. We are requesting that the board bless this levy tonight, and then we'll be able to move forward into the budget process, and then we'll bring the official ordinance back to the board in December for approval.
Are you done?
I'm done.
First of all, any questions? Yes.
So our tax rate goes down.
So I cannot say that 100%. It depends on what the final EAV is, and we won't know that. For DuPage County, I think we know it earlier in the year, but for Cook County, you don't usually know that until approximately next June.
Okay.
So if our estimates are correct and our EAV is going to grow by that 1.5%,
Yes.
this is what our rate will be.
Which is lower
Yes,
than last
yes,
year.
yes.
That's all.
And then if you go back to the slide here, the 2021 proposed property tax levy recommendation, the shaded area is what's being recommended.
Yes,
And so you notice the EAV growth is the same at the top, but the recommendation is for the PTEL increase to be zero. Zero. You could request 2.5% PTEL increase. You could, you could go up to your 5%, which is the statutory maximum, which never gets levied anyhow, but you could be asking for the 2.5, and you could probably get that. But we're able to, staff is able to recommend zero this year and still meet our police pension obligation, our police protection obligation, and our corporate obligations. Again, more good news for Burr Ridge if the board wants to go along with staff recommendation. Okay? Thank you. Very good. Yes, Mike?
So, from the legal aspect, we have an obligation under the Truth in Taxation Act to estimate our levy at least 20 days before we pass our levy ordinance. If you estimate your levy on the 22nd of November, that's 21 days before your December 13th board meeting, when I assume you'll be adopting your levy ordinance. So
I'm sorry, how many days are we?
20.
20?
That makes it the 22nd of November estimated, and then adopting your actual levy ordinance on the 13th. But you have to do an estimate before you can do the adoption. So that needs to be on the agenda for November 22nd, the estimate.
okay.
Just a simple resolution estimating the levy amount.
which would be consistent with the recommendation?
Yes.
Is
I'm
this-
assuming it's gonna be this 1,338,669.
Right.
And then, you know, for truth and taxation purposes, I think that's about a 1.4% of this number that I saw for 2020, but I don't know if that's what you levied or whether that was extended. And the extension number is the amount you compare it to. So if it's 1.4% above what you levied, it's gonna be less than 1.4 for truth and taxation purposes. You only have to worry about truth and taxation if you attempt to exceed 5%. Since you're non-home rule, you're stuck with what the PTEL cap is going to be. So, just saying that for timing purposes, we need to get the estimate on the agenda for the next meeting. Then, no sooner than the 13th of December, can you adopt your levy ordinance? And the second meeting, I think, is too late to get it filed with the county.
There is no second meeting.
That's even more onerous, is that there's no second meeting, so we have to adopt it on the 13th, or else call a special meeting
Yeah.
after the 13th.
But we're still on time.
You're on time.
Okay.
As long as you get your estimate on the agenda for November 22nd.
Okay, we'll make sure to do that. And again, we could, quote, get stuck with the PTEL increase, and we would get an increase, but the recommendation is that we not even ask for a PTEL increase. We're solid enough to go with 0. Okay, so let's make sure it gets on the agenda per council's recommendations, and have all the numbers computed so that we can meet all the truth and taxation requirements.
You
Okay?
want to vote on the agenda item to direct staff to do that?
Yeah, why don't we do that? So can I get a motion to direct staff to make its recommendation to the board for the 2021 property tax levy consistent with the truth in lending laws that govern Burr Ridge?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that recommendation. 8C, consideration of a plan commission recommendation to establish a development moratorium in the downtown business district Z12 2021. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is Z12 2021. This is the Plan Commission recommendation to adopt and enact a land use moratorium in the downtown business development district for the purposes of creating or updating plans, pursuing other zoning changes as required. The Plan Commission extends a unanimous recommendation to you tonight. Once again, reviewing, a land use moratorium is a permitted act that municipalities may engage in from a land use perspective, and the community establishing a temporary moratorium should ensure that the moratorium meets 5 particular legal standards: advances a legitimate government interest, relates to an issue that the community is actively studying, precisely defines what activities are subject to the moratorium, only extends for a limited duration of time, so it can't be indeterminate or indefinite, and is clearly and completely communicated in the ordinance establishing the moratorium. The Plan Commission took the staff report at hand here and made it its recommendation at hand. I should note there are no findings of fact for a case like this. There are those 5 legal standards which you must answer in the affirmative to be in good standing in legal case law terms. The findings of fact and recommendation, again, there is no findings in fact in these cases, but the affirmative recommendation to implement such a policy would include language such as this in any final ordinance that were to be approved if it were directed for approval. Treat this like any other Plan Commission consideration in front of you. If so desired for adoption, this would come back again at the next meeting for an ordinance approval. There is no final action tonight. Tonight is just directing staff to perform some action at your discretion. Again, the Plan Commission returns a unanimous recommendation on this regard, and it is applying to the downtown business development district as shown here on the screen in Exhibit A at hand. I'll be here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, start with the board. Any questions? Any,
May 1st of 2022
is the
expiration date?
expiration duration will be from tonight if it's passed to May 1st.
Do we,
Just a direction to staff to prepare it,
Okay.
so.
okay.
Any questions from anybody in the audience? All right, then can I get a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance enacting a land use moratorium in the downtown business development district, subject to the language included in the Plan Commission's staff report?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
That passes. D, 8D, consideration of an agreement with Axon, AXON Enterprises of Scottsdale, Arizona for the procurement of police body-worn and fleet cameras as well as tasers in the amount of $375,992. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a presentation / consideration tonight to consider adoption of a police body camera program. This item represents an FY22 budgeted waitlist item. So again, budget waitlist items were a practice that was begun last year, FY21, during the pandemic, so as to monitor the overall financial condition of the village throughout the year to determine if any policies that were not immediately budgeted were appropriate to be enacted midway through the year. Again, this is an FY22 waitlisted budget item. This has been a goal for the police department for several years now, but has not been included in a budget until presented tonight as a waitlisted item. But at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Madden and Deputy Chief Loftus to make their presentation about this technology. Thank you.
Chief?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight's presentation, I appear before you for the approval and purchase of body-worn cameras, mobile video cameras, and Taser devices. And this is through a company formerly known as Taser, who's now Axon. We're all aware that back in July of 2021, the Illinois legislature passed a law mandating body-worn cameras for Illinois law enforcement. And that's over the next 4 years. A police department our size, it would be mandatory in 2024. My first request, that's not the reason I'm here tonight. My first request for body-worn cameras was in my budget goals in the 2017-2018 budget. Way before this became mandated, I personally feel this is a very important program for law enforcement. I believe it's important for professional law enforcement, but due to the significant costs in the program in previous budgets, we deferred it. As a nationally accredited law enforcement agency, which we are since 2007, I believe the benefits of body-worn cameras and law enforcement accreditation are the same. A body-worn camera program and law enforcement accreditation, CALIA, both promote transparency and integrity. Both have staunch support from government and law enforcement officials, and both provide a strong defense against civil lawsuits. Also, both provide reduced risk and liability exposure. And lastly, both provide greater accountability within our agency. The Axon body-worn camera, fleet, and Taser purchase I'm requesting tonight provides every Burridge police officer with a body-worn camera and a Taser 7 device, in each of our patrol vehicles with a mobile video camera, all through Axon. What's also very important with the mobile video cameras, currently we have 2 LPR camera systems in 2 cars. When we switch to this program, we will cancel the program we have with our current LPR vendor, and then we will have 10 LPR camera cars. Because Axon partners with Flock Public Safety, which you all are aware of, which we have throughout the village in our HOA program, our video surveillance program. Next slide. So as I go through this, I'm trying to take a lot of information, a lot of technical information, reduce it down, keep it real simple so I can understand it and I can pass it on to you. Basically, with the body-worn camera program through Axon provides, it's a subscription-based program. Like our tasers that we've had for about 13 years now, throughout the whole program at the tasers, we run a taser assurance program. What that means is, with the initial capital outlay to purchase the tasers, after a 5-year period, we pay on a yearly basis as a subscription. At the 5-year mark, we get replacement equipment, so we get updated tasers for the officers. At that time, and currently, we have 6 tasers we deploy, the officers share. So every 5 years, we get new equipment. Takes the purchase out of the capital replacement and puts it right into a subscription line in my budget. For the cameras, the body cameras, which I'll call on my model, Deputy Chief Loftus. So DC Loftus is a body worn camera, the 3rd version of the Axon body camera. Each officer will have a body camera assigned to them, and this will be replaced every 2.5 years. And the reason for the shorter replacement span is because it's out in the field and it goes through a little more of the elements and just out in the field every day, so it gets worn. So the cameras, all 27 cameras will be replaced every 2.5 years. So that leaves the cameras in the vehicles, which are the Fleet 3 cameras. So 1 in every patrol vehicle. And like I said, what's unique about Axon, that makes this sole source, is that Axon and Flock Public Safety are in a partnership that takes that camera in our car and converts it into interfaces with Flock Public Safety for LPR. So once again, I'm happy to tell you that we'll go from 2 cars to 10 cars having that capability. There's also a lot of technology integration. What makes this extremely a positive program is if an officer draws his or her weapon, camera turns on automatically. There's a device that's installed in our current holsters. We don't have to buy new holsters. The device is installed in the holster that senses the firearm leaving the holster and activates the body camera. Also, anybody in 30 feet of that officer that's wearing a body-worn camera automatically turns on their camera. So they don't have to hit the button to turn it on. Also, all the cars within 30 feet, their camera's activated. If I'm on a traffic stop, I've got my camera on, everything's activated. Car pulls up behind me, all his equipment is activated too. They all mesh and integrate together, which gives us an outstanding view in case of a critical incident. You have everybody with a body camera, everything. There is no, I didn't turn it on or I forgot or something was going on. If you turn on the lights in the car, the emergency lights or the siren, everything is activated. So they really did think of everything. It has evolved over the years. Mm-hmm. Next slide. This program also allows us to have a taser for every officer, excluding the deputy chief and myself. We saw the need for this last year when we had incidents of civil unrest where we participated with our mutual aid partners, the Merit Task Force, and deployed into other communities to assist in civil unrest. We didn't have enough tasers to go around. Those mutual aid officers took priority and took the tasers that we had. The officers that were behind here in Burr Ridge, and as you know, we had a number of them on duty, did not have the equipment to use. So this program, this package program, allows us to have a taser for each officer, each patrol officer and detective. So I covered the replacements already, and the huge benefit that Flock Public Safety, the wing program, which we currently have approximately 52 cameras in town right now, and through our subdivision program, we will interface right in there with Flock Public Safety. Next, please. So that's kind of an overview of just everything that we get in the program. Let's setup, installation, training, everything is included. Everything. We have had no problems with Axon with our current tasers and any training that we needed and for recertification. The deputy chief is also a taser instructor. Next, please. So the 5-year cost on this program, there is some duplicate technology that we'll be canceling. One important note is the current technology that we have in our squad cars with video. We started with VHS tapes in the cars, so that you get an idea how long ago that was. That was a lot easier to use too. Over the years, the current technology, we are in dire need of replacement. We've held off the past 3 years in hopes to transition to Axon and did not want to spend a significant amount of money to replace that equipment. This is much better technology. In the budget, in lieu of the Axon program, I had the replacement of 3 vehicles and a server, and it was approximately $30,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a significant amount that I just couldn't see spending just for that technology in the cars. So basically, we're not going to replace a server. Axon and all of its equipment is cloud-based. The body cameras upload through our network into the cloud, into evidence.com. One issue over the years that we as chiefs don't need to worry about anymore is we were always concerned about FOIA and redaction. Probably about 6 or 7 years ago, somebody had to watch the video and redact. So if it's a 3-hour video times 3 officers, you had to watch that video and redact each file. License plates, faces, whatever. Technology now, it's all computerized and automated. So the concern about having to hire civilian personnel to handle FOIAs, redaction, and records issues related to Axon doesn't exist. We've both been shown the whole process on how to redact. It's all automated and significantly reduces the amount of time. Where I feel that with the staff we have, we can successfully handle that, no problem at all. There are grants available. The state of Illinois offers grant funding from its mandate. It's not a lot. It's $10,000 for the first year. The second year, for a second-year department putting in for it, it is dependent upon the number of agencies putting in for the grant, and they'll determine how much an agency on the second year could get based on the number of grant awards. What is consistent would be the grant from IRMA, which is also $10,000 from our risk management provider. So there's a breakdown, and I think Evan's going to get a little more into the, Mr. Walter's going to get in a little more into finances, how to fund this. But the 5-year net impact is $199,644. Yes. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Questions? Russ?
Yes, sir.
Al?
On the 5-year grant, this 375, like you got it down here, actually comes out to about 40,000 a year, right? After everything else is figured in?
Correct.
Now, also, if there's problems, does this include repair and maintenance of the material that we get?
It's all included, similar to what we've experienced with the Taser devices. If there's a failure of one of our devices, they overnight us a new one. They're very quick with that and the replacement. There's a repair, and it's all included in the costs. Okay. For the body cameras, fleet, the whole package.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Russ?
So, thank you, Chief. A couple questions. You mentioned we have a in-car video camera installed, 2 of them. It looked like in the budget there was 3 of them for $32,000. Are you saying that we would get that money back if we go to this program?
No, that's money we won't spend.
It's been allocated.
Okay.
I put in the budget in the event that Axon this proposal does not pass, we have to have the technology in the vehicles at minimum. And right now, I actually have 5 cars that have failed.
The 2 cars that he mentioned are 2 license plate recognition cars. So-
That's separate,
So
yeah.
we pay separate fees on top of those that would go away. The 3 is to replace outdated in-car video systems in our squad cars. And the replacement plan that was in place to replace those as they break down.
Okay. So a couple other follow-up questions. Yes, I'm a proponent for this. I think we're going to go this route regardless. We all know that because of the House bill. My concern is the price tag, having to look at that right now at this juncture. It would be my wish if we could push this out 5 months when we go back into the budget process for 2023. We're moving around a lot of parts. You've heard some of the numbers already. We're paying off our police department debt. The mayor last meeting mentioned about working towards the police pension. These are all really good things. We obviously have some great finances, and I just think that this kind of price tag should be worked in, whether it's a finance committee meeting or during the budget process, to get this squared away. That's just my wish as trustee. Thank you.
Chief, so as Chief Loftus mentioned, you had 2 license plate cars and the other cars. If you had to give a rough ballpark estimate of the replacement cost that you would have to pay to get your existing equipment updated, how much would that be?
It is approximately $40,000.
40,000. Okay, so that is 40,000, and this is 40,000 annual.
It'd be for the 5 cars that we need to put video cameras in.
Right.
And a server.
Right.
Which is $9,000. That's how we came up with that. That's been in the budget for the last 3 years, or budget goals, I'm sorry.
And that's something you would have to do in 2021, or would that be pushed down?
Well, we've got vehicles out there without that capability, and that's concerning to me.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You know, unfortunately, over the years, an officer's testimony doesn't hold the weight that it did 20 years ago. And what we see more and more in court is a request for video. They want video. The judge wants to see video, state's attorneys want video, and defense attorneys want video. As we're all aware, everybody's got their phones up all the time. It's all video. So it's very important.
Chief, what I just understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anita asked a question that you had in the budget $40,000 a year, or $40,000 to correct the 5 vehicles, plus $9,000 for the cert.
Budget goals.
Budget goals.
Budget goals, yeah.
Okay, so but really you're telling me that we really need it in the cars now anyway, correct?
We do.
So I have it, in a sense, you propose this saying, I can spend $40,000 here, fix the 5 cars. Or I can go to this program and give 25 cameras, tasers, everything for the same $40,000.
Well, the $40,000 to replace the technology we have now is a one-time expense. Okay. The Axon program.
5-year, $40,000.
Continuation, an annual subscription.
And it takes care of all 27 officers and all the 10 vehicles, and everyone is in position with everything correct. So when Anita brought up the fact to say, well, or Trustee Smith says, well, I love it as a wish list, and I like to propose for 5 months to come back and do this. If I'm gonna spend $40,000 anyway, to fix the things, wait 5 months and wait when I can put all my officers in the correct spot after you've waited since 2017, my opinion is it would probably be better to do it now. Since you've already done some little heavy lifting by doing the duplicate technology, taking out 150, you're gonna do the grants. I'm sure with you and Chief Loftus, you'll probably find some additional grants somewhere and surprise us like a few other things happen along the way.
We're always looking.
So stuff like that. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Can I make one clarification? This would only be paid for starting when we receive the equipment. So we wouldn't get it Thursday. We're projecting to get it next March. which means we don't start paying on this till next March. So
Okay.
there wouldn't be a cost incurred until it's all rolling and live. So we're probably 4 or 5 months out. Not to say it shouldn't or couldn't be a budget consideration. I'm just saying that we're not writing a check as soon as we get out of this meeting tonight. It will take a lot of steps and time for us to actually get there. And that was one of the reasons why we brought this for you tonight, is because if you don't want to move forward with the camera system, the police department and myself agreed we need to come back with a replacement system for some of the technology needs in the department at a relatively quick turnaround pace, probably in the next meeting or two, just to make sure that we do have working in-car cameras as a priority item. Not making any statement about doing this or not doing this. I'm just saying that there are some technology needs which sort of necessitated making a decision on this relatively soon in that regard.
Yes, John.
Is there any time sensitivity to signing up with Exxon? Exxon? Is that what it is?
It's Axon.
More expensive if we.
Right, if we wait 6 months.
Mark just told me they're looking at a price increase next year. I don't know when that is going to
Right.
be. I would assume that, I expected that when the Illinois law passed. I thought Axon would jump and raise the prices, but they didn't so far.
So, right now you've got about, you said, a $40,000 equipment replacement cost, the server and some cameras. And then the following year, you know, with the old technology, is that another expense that we would see?
Well, we didn't feel comfortable replacing that technology. We stretched that out to 7-8 year life.
Okay.
It's 5-year life, but it lasts longer.
Yeah.
And we've been proposing Axon. I didn't feel comfortable with replacing that technology with that, at that cost, $30,000, $40,000. And then 3 years later, we're gonna be replacing that with Axon.
Right.
Number one, because we have to.
Right.
At that time. Right. And it's like brand new equipment in the car that you had spent that $30,000 plus on.
Right.
So my request to Mark was we've got to stretch it out as long as we can.
And that's what you've done, Chief and
We
Deputy
have,
Chief.
yeah.
I mean, they've done a great job of managing the police department. And we've worked together on moving the officers from an 8-hour shift to 12 hours, which has actually saved us money. And I think, you know, the chief and the deputy chief don't come to us with a lot, you know, with technology. And I think this is something that, this is what he's looking for to assist him and the officers who are doing an absolutely wonderful job in protecting our residents. I think it's something that we should consider now, you know, for that additional protection for our police officers and for our residents.
Yes, Al.
Similar to what Trustee Shappa said, in today's conditions for law enforcement, I think this is something that is totally needed, and I think for the officers' protection and the village's protection, I think this is something that we should get, and I don't think we should delay it. I think this is something that we should consider going ahead with. If there's any doubt about money, I would rather hold off extra money for police protection, police pension, and go with this.
Okay. Yes, Anita?
So, once again, excellent job, and I know you guys put in really good cost-saving measures. So really, 3 years down the road, we have no option but the subscription model, right? It's not like we could-
2024.
Yeah, we could buy this equipment and do it ourselves, we could.
2024, we have to, by law, we have to deploy
So,
by.
so in that case, we might as well, you know, just get with better technology and not invest that money in equipment, which will become obsolete once we adopt the subscription model, right?
Yes.
Right? So, yes, so I wholly
I'm aware
support.
that this is expensive technology.
Right. So going back to Administrator Walter's point, we're going to sign up now, but really the first payment would be due in March, right? Or the
We're
first-
projecting March, yes.
Right, right. But you're just locking in the pricing right now.
We will lock in the price.
To save
We've got
the
the
increase.
holidays coming up, so not a lot's
Right.
gonna get done with Axon probably. They've been great to work with, and they've held in with us through the years.
Right.
I'm afraid of supply chain issues too,
Right, right.
so they
Big-
warned
big
us on
problem.
that.
Yeah.
So I think, as Mr. Walter said, I think it's pretty safe to say probably, there's training, installation, probably April, March, April.
That's when the first installment would be
That's
due.
how I feel. Probably not till March, April.
Very good. Thank you.
There.
Yep. Well,
So-
wait,
oh, I'm
still,
sorry, please.
Guy,
Yep.
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief, for an excellent presentation and in enlightening us on this fantastic technology. A couple of questions. I think you touched on it earlier, but I just want to make it clear. This new Axon camera system technology is fully compatible with the existing subdivision entryway cameras that we have throughout the village. They complement each other?
Flock, public safety.
Okay.
So this equipment is not going to interact with those cameras.
Understand?
It's going to use that same technology.
So they're compatible?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right, very good, thank you. At the end of 5 years, what happens?
At the end of 5 years, every officer gets a new taser. Every vehicle camera gets replaced.
Okay,
The newer equipment.
okay,
There is no capital outlay for that. It's a
Right.
continuation of the subscription. Every 2.5 years, a new body camera to each officer.
correct. And the subscription rate is renegotiated then at the end of 5 years?
At the end of 5 years, correct.
Okay. And so you've looked at the big picture here, what would be the lowest overall cost to the village during this 5-year time period, knowing that you have some vehicles now that have outdated technology and outdated systems in them that need replacing imminently. And if we were to replace those standalone and not involve this Axon system, Axon technology, we have to go to the body cameras anyway in 2024, we might be replacing those cameras at the same time and then wasting that investment.
They wouldn't be at their end of life, yeah.
Okay.
There would be a waste issue there.
Very good. I understand about the cameras. I mean, if anybody out here has a GoPro, my GoPro is 3 years old and it's already an antique. And it's nice to have, I would love to have a free upgrade every 2.5 years, but that doesn't happen in the private sector. So thank you for
Thank you.
presentation.
Anyone else? One question? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just wanted to make a quick note about the actual financing of this item. I appreciate Chief's comments about the hardware and the applicability of this technology, about how it can be advantaged in our police department. This $199,000 is the net new additional cost beyond what we'd be spending, yes. The total outlay is $375,992, but net the savings, it's $199,644. The funding source that I'm proposing is to use the IRMA Reserve Fund, not the general fund, to actually fund this. The IRMA Reserve Fund typically pays us a dividend every single year based on our good experience credit. Experience credit is basically, as Trustee Snyder can probably allude to, when you have no accident insurance, your insurance company smiles upon you, which is what IRMA is. IRMA traditionally sends us about $25,000 to $30,000 a year because we have good experience. We have very few accidents as a village. We have very few workplace injuries. We've invested a lot in fleet technology, radios, phones, a lot of technology which makes our workers, our officers, our public works employees safer. So we have a very good experience rating, and so they end up sending us a check every year on a credit. We pay a dividend every year, we pay them a big check at the beginning of the year, and they send us some of that money back. That money has accumulated every single year to be about $1 million. But again, as long as it is accumulating every year, we don't have any really place to put that money. So that's why I have recommended that this program, should it be enacted, actually be paid out of the IRMA fund, because the IRMA fund is paying us dividends every year. Actually, last year, IRMA sent us $250,000 as a result of excess income earnings that IRMA had. IRMA earns an average of 22% interest income every single year, which is what that reserve fund is part of as a member organization. So really, the way that we've set this up, or at least the way we propose this, is that yes, there are some net savings to make this a overall net cheaper option for you. But I want should this be approved, the revenue source for this to be transfers from the IRMA fund, which are those annual credits we get every year. At the end of the day, yes, this is a cost, but at the end of the day, there is a matching revenue, or at least a generally matching revenue option for the village to take advantage of that doesn't deplete existing services, doesn't impact existing general fund revenues, expenditures, or services the like. So I just want to make that clear that this is not just money coming out of thin air, out of the top of the general fund, the way that some may construe it or think about it. This is coming from our risk management fund, which is set up to do just such a thing. And to date, there have not been very many opportunities to use that, which is why it's built up, which is why it pays us large deductibles. And that's where I want to use that money for a productive use, in this case, to buy our technology that the state mandates, but also we need to purchase anyway in the form of worn-out technology. Thank you.
Great. So I have a question and a couple comments. So what about cloud storage? Where does that come in here? And I know that was a concern countywide, and I know there was some thoughts that the agencies would store it all together, so to speak, so we had a package deal with all. But this does not include storage, and storage gets to be expensive.
It includes unlimited storage
Unlimited?
in our costs
Oh.
here.
Okay.
It's unlimited storage in evidence.com. Now, evidence.com, that is the software, the portal that we use to manage the videos, and that maintains the integrity of those videos for court purposes. Evidence.com, this DuPage County State's Attorney is provided full access to evidence.com by Axon for Axon departments. So when our videos are uploaded into evidence.com, and we do what we need to do with redaction and so on, the state's attorney, we will allow them access into our portal, and they take that evidence, the video evidence, when they need it for court purposes.
Okay, so this cost includes the storage.
All included.
All right, so that adds to my comments. So that to me is a big plus, because I know how concerned, when I was on the county board and we were looking at these types of body cameras that we knew were coming in the future, and storage was always a big additional potential cost. So I'm glad that's incorporated here, and I'm glad that's answered.
And that's actually much of the cost.
Right. And I greatly respect what Trustee Smith has brought up, and that is, we've got a lot of moving parts and money, but I think we can accommodate your question, and thank you. We should always be talking about money when we're up here, making sure the money's being appropriately spent, and the history of this village and this board has been just that. So that's consistent with the way we do business here. But it really sounds to me, with Evan's idea, which is, again, another good one, about using our premium or whatever we get back from IRMA, which will cover the annual cost. This will be about $40,000 a year. We'll get that from IRMA, so it won't come out of the general fund. Our first check will not be probably going out for at least 4 months, might be 5 months, Russ, so to be within what you were concerned about. We don't have to really consider this in the budget. We'll know where it's getting paid for out of IRMA, so we'll be okay there. But here's the overriding important thing. Number one, we have the money, we probably should do it. But more importantly, we are in an era where policing and police activities are being negatively scrutinized, in my opinion, and I think maybe the opinion of a lot of people. This is an opportunity, another opportunity for this village to lead in what we know is coming anyhow, which is body cameras for police. And you also heard the explanation that these are going to be automatic. There will be no, oh, the camera turned off, or oh, I forgot to turn it on, or it fell from my vest, or whatever. This is high-end technology that meets all the needs of law enforcement. Law enforcement itself wants it. And as I've often said, the number one job of government is to protect the public, is law enforcement. This is a timing thing. We have the money, it's early in the contract, we'll probably get the best price, but it also sends the message that this village and this board will step up when it comes to getting the best for our residents when we can afford it, and we can afford it. So I'm in favor of going forward with it now for all of these reasons. Anybody else have any question? Anybody in the audience? Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the agreement with Axon Enterprises of Scottsdale, Arizona for the procurement of police body-worn and fleet cameras, as well as tasers, in the amount of $375,992, with the understanding that we're going to budget this through our IRMA refunds, and it'll be on a annual basis, averaging about $40,000 a year to us.
So moved.
Is this just to
Second.
prepare,
Is this just to prepare the ordinance?
Evan, prepare the resolution approving the agreement?
We need to come back, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so
It's gonna
it's
come
a,
back next meeting.
it's a motion to direct staff to do so, and then, but in the meantime, you will be able to, by then, to lock it in, subject to our vote. Okay.
Thanks, chief.
Thank
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have
Second.
Al, second. Anita, second. Any discussion at the board level? Any discussion at the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Pavesa.
Yes.
Trustee Mattel.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Chiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to 8E, approval of the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments. This was removed at the request of trustee Schiappa. Tony,
Yes.
did you want to make a statement?
Yeah, I wanted to remove from the consent agenda with the pleasure of having Anne Marie here, so I wanted to get a little bit more detail on background on the budget adjustments. So, just a little bit.
This is Anne Marie night.
Great. So I think that this is a practice that staff will be doing going forward. I think customarily the budget adjustments were brought to the board after the audit for that fiscal year based upon the audited financial statements. I think it's best practice to look at your spending on a quarterly basis and bring any budget adjustments forward to the board for consideration. So we're going to be doing this on a quarterly basis going forward. Some of the items on here are items that the board has approved the contract for, such as the marketing and communication services. So we're just now coming back to the board to do a budget adjustment for that because that wasn't originally included in the fiscal year 2022 budget. Some of them are cleanup. We're kind of changing the way we allocate some of our expenditures. That's why like the telephone stuff is on here. You see some bank fees that are on here. It's really just to reallocate how we charge our different funds. There's some finance reorganization expenditures on here that were not contemplated when the budget was originally passed, so we're doing a budget adjustment for that. And then there's just a small amount of revenue on here. We put the revenue on the budget adjustment list when we didn't contemplate that revenue at all for the year. If it's just an increase, like if we collect more sales tax than we planned, we don't necessarily do a budget amendment for that. But if it's for revenue that wasn't included at all, then you'll see it on a budget adjustment list. So this is pretty much cleaning up for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and then if necessary, we'll come back for the next 2 quarters of the fiscal year.
Okay, great. So like, for instance, that revenue, the grant, that work zone safety grant is something that we didn't anticipate, and so we will put this in the report for a budget adjustment.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the item that the chief was just talking about, if we happen to get grant funds to fund the purchase of the body cameras, we would do a budget adjustment for those grant funds because it wasn't anticipated when we passed the original 2022 budget.
Okay. And with revenue, also the expense side, you know, the expense that we
Absolutely,
don't. Okay.
absolutely, yep.
Great, that was all. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I quickly get board consensus? Do you want future budget amendment topics to be on or off consent? I don't want you guys to keep pulling them off if you want them off.
I think that since they're somewhat routine, you can put them on consent, and just like tonight, if
Is
a
that okay?
particular trustee has a
To
question,
identify- to identify something if it's
Yeah,
needed.
or if a citizen so requests, as the announcement says, then we'll take them on.
Understood, thank you.
Okay? Okay. Consensus? Okay. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Okay, that takes us to item 9, public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? No public comment. Okay, that takes us to reports and communications from village officials. Anybody, any trustees?
I will.
Yes, Anita?
Do you want?
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, Once again, our community events analyst, Hannah, has been very busy, and we've got a lineup of events in the coming month. Starting on November 10th, we have the mobile DMV in town. On November 11th, we have the Veterans Memorial Celebration, and that will be at 8 a.m. at the Veterans Memorial in front of the Village Hall. It'll last about 5 to 10 minutes. November 19th, we have Deck the Greens, which is a community event, and this is sponsored with the Village Center. There are a lot of not-for-profits who are supporting it. We will have baked goods, hot chocolates, fun activities for kids, so it should be a good, fun event. Hannah's also put up a community events portion on the village website, which is under the events tab. So if anyone has an event that they would like to promote or make the residents in the village aware, please reach out to us so that we can post it there. We're trying to make this one community, not a park district, not a chamber of commerce, but the community of Burr Ridge, where everyone can get information. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Guy?
I would ask this board to consider an agenda item at a future meeting to direct the Plan Commission to undertake the review and study of short-term rentals in residential areas. I'm referring to Airbnbs and VRBOs. On past occasions, and Evan can list these in greater detail, there have been certain issues at certain times with short-term rentals where these homes were rented for a night, a weekend, whatever, and it's been a party. It's been a source of noise, of drunkenness, of trespassing of neighboring properties, and the surrounding neighbors have had to suffer through this. Currently, our zoning and ordinances don't allow for strict enforcement and regulating, controlling this. I think we should be proactive and protect all the citizens and all the residents in the village with some sort with beefed up ordinances that would restrict the short-term rentals. Evan, you care to add anything about some of the subdivisions that have had problems with this?
I'm trying to think. I think we've had this on the south side of town. There's one particular address down in Devon, which I recall has been called on several times. I think there's been a few in Babson which have had calls on. We may not be thinking of the exact ones, but I certainly can attest that there have been relatively routine action regarding residents complaining about this very subject. We looked at this a few years ago at the Plan Commission level. They at that point declined to take action, but at the same time, the board's directing them to look at it again. We certainly can look at it again with fresh eyes, different perspectives about how things have worked. But I certainly can attest that we've gotten these complaints from residents in the past.
You mentioned 2 subdivisions. I recall 2 others as well, and received complaints from residents in one subdivision, and because I'm a property owner in that particular subdivision. So I think we need to do our best to protect our residents from these short-term rentals. And I'm not talking about the corporate executive that comes in and rents a home for a month because he's here on assignment. I'm talking about the overnight party destinations that go out on social media, and then there's a congregation of people that attend these parties and are there all hours of the night, disturbing the neighbors, multiple police calls, etc. So
I think we should be able to put enough definition to the issue so that we can give proper direction to the Plan Commission to parse out the 2 examples you gave. One is fine, the other's not fine.
Right.
And it probably should be something. I know it's actually, I've gotten a couple calls too on other areas and subdivisions you haven't mentioned, either one of you, so it may be becoming more of a problem. So I'm sure we can put it on, and I'm sure there'll be consensus to put this on the agenda. Find a spot for it, Evan, and let's bring it up.
future
Okay.
agenda. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I have a few announcements. This week, well, you've already said about it's Veterans Day coming up, and you've already given that announcement. Thank you. Don't have to say it twice. The village is seeking volunteers to serve on our various committees and commissions. These committees and commissions are vital to the mission of our village and keeping it a very special place. If you, any resident, is interested in serving the community, please submit a volunteer questionnaire and your resume to the Village Hall so we can have adequate information to invite you to apply for one of these committees or commissions. Very soon, we're getting to the holiday season. Very soon, you will begin to notice the beautiful decorations and lights along County Line Road and, of course, the I-55 bridge. Last year, our residents and homeowners associations did a great job of lighting up the village and raising our spirits. We once again invite all of our homeowners associations to decorate your subdivision entryways to brighten the village this holiday season. I authored another letter today and sent it one to each of the homeowner association leadership, kind of challenging them to do it again, just like last year, and raise the spirits. Last year we certainly needed it, and this year we still need it. And so I'm hoping the village, and tonight you approve the expenditure so that we will have a beautiful bridge and beautiful entryway. I received, I'm sure all of you did, a lot of comments about it last year, and I'm sure we will again. I think we set a precedent, and we continue to lead as Burr Ridge. So you're going to be seeing that very soon. The Chicago Region Trees Initiative, in conjunction with Cook County Forest Preserve, is hosting a fun and interactive event to learn about invasive tree species in our area, which make up 45% of all trees in the Chicago region. The event will take place on Saturday, December 11th from noon to 3 p.m. at the Pioneer Woods Picnic Grove in Willow Springs. Visit the Chicago Region Tree Initiative website for more information. Just this week, a resident brought an idea to my attention of starting a Burr Ridge magazine. If any one of our bright and talented residents are interested in this project, please contact me and I will put you in contact with this person, see if we can get one going. A couple of other things. I was invited, thanks to Chief Madden, to Merit. Merit, what does Merit stand for, Chief?
Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigation Team.
Sounds like a very important title, and it is. It actually provides much needed equipment to the police departments in the area. And guess who was one of the leaders of this whole Merit program? Our own Chief Madden. And there was a very successful fundraising event last Wednesday night, November 3rd. And I'll give a little shout out to Harry Carey's in Lombard, where it was a wonderful event. People that were invited were not aware of what Merit does, how much this equipment costs. It's somewhat expensive, but it's somewhat needed. And unfortunately, in today's law enforcement age, even in DuPage County and our area of Cook County in this village, you need this type of equipment to address some of the things that happen. So it was a very successful event, and you know, it's all because of the leadership of Chief Madden. And so I wanted to give him a shout out and Merit a shout out, because once again, Burr Ridge was important in the success of a law enforcement agency. And finally, just to poke a little fun at myself, I was asked to be a participant at 97.1 The Drive, the FM radio that was one of our concert sponsors. And I participated in 7 songs in 7 seconds, 7:30 in the morning last Friday. And I'm in a category all by myself. It was Mayor's Week, and they were doing this with all kinds of mayors. And I was the only mayor, apparently, that didn't even get one song correctly. So I'm in my own category.
You're working too hard.
Yeah, right. I mean, I had no chance. Unless they were going to put on Motown or the Beatles, I had no chance.
Now
And
they
so
have to
the first
sponsor
song,
us. They have to sponsor us again next year.
right, the first song was from AC/DC, and I didn't know their music. So anyhow,
They played your excerpt all day.
and so, you know, they played a song and they said, well, and I said, let it be. And they said, oh, yeah, right. So anyhow, I gave them a plug on 97.1 for doing our concerts and everything else, so that was fun. So I was the butt of a joke for a day, and it was well worth it. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn to the next meeting on November 22nd at 7 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.